Hello everyone, thanks for inviting me back. Out of a desire to address all the contributors possible, understanding only English, I sometimes fear that these annual addresses end up imposing a kind of punitive monologue on you all, one that a less forgiving audience might regard as plain bad manners. But in the spirit of this anthology's dialogic theme, more than ever my intention today is simply to report what one reader hears in the voices of this 10th edition of Mihaela's visionary Romanian and Australian poetry and prose anthologies. If I miss anybody, I apologise. There are so many of you, and so this speech might end up taking 10 minutes or so. Please feel free to drift in and out of awareness of my voice. But to begin with, we start with a fragment of Stefan Dimitriou's, translated by Dr. Cristina Savini. It's from a novel directly taking its title from the Sermon on the Mount, Tomorrow Will Worry for Itself, where the order of the nights they speak in history's injustice, whispers and ellipses. It's a chance encounter on a Bucharest street between a limping general and his aging ally, one whom time makes younger by the day. And then you're speaking to yourself in Peter Cartwright with a funny voice that says it'll be all right, while the hallway rings with a whomp of weary lungs and a trumpet of a blown nose summons up the spiritus mundi, sniffling and suckling for a kiss laid on silver hair, which is a minor miracle performed by the Holy Mother in a backyard grotto in Hellenic Curix, Maria, the Devil, and the Virgin's Duck. It invokes a prayer of sacramental tears that brings out the beast in a foul disguise as devious as Brook from the bold and the beautiful. She allowed the universe to know. Danny Draper's ode to the self-excited circuit of a conscious cosmology, its flowering between Edenic gardens and the original noumena of song refraining, please take care of me. Trust me, stay, thrive, know this eternal gift, breathe into blazing life at a costume party with a top hat, staving off canoodling with chit-chat is The Beginning by Jason Gray. To kiss on the rocks, both light and heavy, like someone you called beautiful, sitting on your knee, amidst acid tongues, conscious of the time together yet to come, rolling out like waves along a beach, unseen by human eyes, a smokeless spectre that seeks out the best of us in Zed Cedar's Muslim ghost stories, enchantments, and exercising energies of familial bonds told around a black stone kitchen bench with cigarettes and coffee between generations of believers. Amongst them is Les Wicks, who sees this coven carrying sacks of faith for survivors had reached the coast, with a blessing on the headland as heat becomes a sort of sex, with a burn dissolving into death, praying for art like some Karawong's cry. And Vasily Panaru, he translates Knowledge in the Unseen by Anna Sacrio, and it's a nimble sorting of the sounds for ears stuffed with silence, eyes blind to black tresses, so that you could swear by endless night and moonless dark, and what is not done will wind us through its passage, spiraling down the wells of eternity, to carve a poet out of a pumpkin in Paris Rosemont's diagnosis ekphrasis. It requires care and abandon. It's an ink blot, bleeding Rorschach black broadcasting, like a salty, foaming free-for-all, dribbling pearlescence, a whiskered mollusk oozing its own orgiastic form. It's a homecoming for Dr. Ierarh Petrescu, a flight of pigeons in the plaza. It's a town scrubbed and clean, and two entitled aunties, quarrelsome reminder of their missing middle sister, demanding black hats and other favours like English doctors begging for donations in the East. The aftershocks, they're coming all the way from 1989, in Carol Amos's memory of being shaken and disturbed and trying to choose between her baby boy and girl, alone and defenseless in their rooms with the terror stirred up by a daughter's call decades after the dilemma. And a cane cracks against the shopping centre tiles, and the musty air reeks of damp and durians in Frances Anne's terrible Mandarin, where a blind man bumps against a language barrier summoned up by an Aussie accent spoken by a traveller whose face confounds the locals with its panoply of associations. And Anna Kendrick Nicholson is posting flowers between women over centuries and seas, packed and sealed and ziplocked with moss, waiting to exhale their bee-sucked scent by summer's light and the smell of fires burning beneath the copper pots, pirouetting with oomph over ice in a courtroom, listening to mentors and tormentors toss us back and forth like a fiercely played collie in Ilona Kruger's evocation of Hamlet's question, where the rub is a game of chess, playing checkmate against the soul. Leaving is an act of hope, a needle pulling thread from snow-capped streets in a grey city, all the way to daydreams of mangoes, conjured by Alexander Homock through the steam of a mother's pot, billowing a child's desire to reach a distant star. Back Then, by Sue Charmont, is an epistle of teenage memory, returned to sender like a rain of splinters in the heart, punctured deep and bringing forth a flood of tears that swells a wash of solitude, where a promise never to forget is set in black and white, and time plays back the acts for two lovers in Augusta Supple's I Don't Think We Don't Love Each Other, scenes of a man and a woman out of sync, slamming doors and expectations, winding back to first signatures of a romance, faded to black, in and out of time. The movement of words is like a constellation stretched over broken bridges for Luminita's dancing over lost communication lines like travelling stars that dance and mend in the warmth of being with each other once again. Brought together like far-flung objects glimpsed in some grand telescope, spied in Norm Fairbairn's James Webb Loves Jazz, that cosmic mover and shaker in the billion-dollar suit who leaves us behind on terra firma, queued up in tents like sailors shipwrecked under musical spheres. The web of life is anthropomorphic in Adriana Crucian's dialogue with animals, a bond beyond words, a migrating bird's inner compass, the loyalty of dogs, a house cat's self-possession. Their nature speaks and it calls us to take our place in the co-mutual loom of life. The wine dark sea is a memento mori in Linda Atkins' deathbed devotional. A veiled Madonna clasping long fingers, watching over the repose of a funereal mother and her daughter's post-mortem privacies made moot by death's dark orthodoxy. An email can be an utter catastrophe, tangling in Schrodinger's rejection, a litter of punishments aimed at persuading an introvert into the hell of other people. In Daniel Vieira's playful paranomasia, I never know how to say that word, where practice makes perfect till the kitty gets the cream. How to start a story about dialogues, willing a steady stream of words to make a river, wash fragments of internal choir, clamouring with contradictions until some ordinary subject dances out onto the page in small syntactic steps for Christophe Maikislu, cocooned and lit by candlelight with Robin Young. Breathe in, hold, breathe out. To the tune of pan flutes between the trees, a gentle hush, fire-circled stones and laced in lullaby songs of seas and ancestry, inhaled and held inside the heart like a spirit speak. Both things can be true. For Daniel Catherine, desire and contradiction, connection in distance, familiar freedom, happiness, if and or the other thing a touch, to see your pain in the other's eyes, assured it will be either or, a difference resolved in distinctions between Alyssa and Georgie, A fist of slender fingers, a subtle tremor and scent of soap, pale pink lips, warm milk skin, rare goose flesh, excitation, secrets spoken in an opera bar, and another man leaning on a handrail, turning his gaze like a curtain call. The scene is danger, no safe place. And upstairs Luke, in Parramatta's Hungry Jacks, eavesdropping on promises of sickies and ice creams, reading writing on the wall for a girl with bloodshot eye, and a strange idea of motherly love. When the plague comes for Galen partners, who will take her mother's place? Who's going to call for haircuts? Who's going to make the pudding? Who'll make the laughter come easy as tears? What will it be to live without this bond that only death can break? The next glance is evergreens dancing in the breeze, rustling harmonies in Paul Trainor's glimpse of romantic fantasy swimming in the bobbing branches and their leaves, until daydreams are interrupted by feature's frantic jaunt, and all desire breaks into inner accusation. The perfect complement in Archie Dobson's Vincent is a red beard to turquoise rivers, twisted and torturous as unrequited love, harsh as skin stretched to skull, meekly praising fields framed with gold and a firmament from which all cold, hunger and despair descends on the forsaken. On ceilings, canvas, Christine Johnson sketches, while first light spears between blinds and birdsong, thoughts of stubbled cheeks, tying the knot on a tyranny under ancient skies scented by wattle and wisteria, and a river running wild like a dark ribbon through the dreaming land. A dialogue under a tree for Suad Zacharani. Here's a leaf's fall toward his face, from which a thirsty traveller drinks his fill, and nature bids see a different light, the unities in differing forms falling without a ripple, for fears of summer's final fade. Enter the labyrinth. Ron Wilkins' encounter between two wanderers whose garbled greeting makes circuitous leaps between the limits dividing language, while exposure and persistence open pathways that could move us anywhere. Into Summer Night of Ella Laney, a garden thrumming along a thread between tales of sparrowhawks above the polecats and horse-drawn carts, the stormy nights, and the white boar scattering wolves round elms tied to the pale light of the starry sky. Rise, risk, and desire is the measure of Elizabeth F. Woodfield, hearing mad voices motoring around the edges of the Black Sea, romancing the dust from grey stones, and letting the grasses grasp your hair as hoofbeats come from time's beginning to a castle in the sky. For Pat Sanders, filled with Rapunzel's flowing locks, a glass shoe for Cinderella, gifted to a younger age, while a new friend arrives to swap sweets with itchy fingers and flop of ponytail. The folk dancer begins in garden where, after funeral and hospital, a visitor arrives with promises of a dancing cure and a slow coming back to life through the numb fog of grief, one small frustration at a time. Behind the mask and gown, wind whispers along the waters. Below the blue, we sigh. Shine and feel so free. In Philosophy by Angie Lynn, like a self-bound stranger, canvas and painter, our wisdom takes to wing, a light with laughter, joy and tears wobbling, like some weary rider wanting to cycle to you. In Rachel Kaziki's ode to stilted smiles, asking tales be told while nuns hum in Carpathian air, making way for the iron gates of Transylvania with hand-painted plates and a final meal of river eels. Ray Lawler is 103 in Gregory Kenny's epistolary of connections made and lost on the far road north, seeking enchantments in raw nature and reunion, coming face to face with dreamings and legends that hide a private sadness in drownings and deletions at another summer's end. While two lovers reconcile with green tea over rice. For Marie Dustman, reading the moon before a high tea party, with a 3-tier cake and teacup, marking the past's patina. There's stains like the names of summer flowers, the lunar codex of the moon's many meanings between us. Like loonies, angling absent-minded under bed is Belinda Kirby, the moaning vibrato illusions erupting into volumes of unspoken forgetting to finally recall the luxury of friends, and coming at last to crossing Lennox Bridge, your latest dream of the city's other side, alert to omens in the gems and stones which spoke their lines and rhythms to you, like silent music moving through your body, before a boy steps out to play and you pray unspoken verse. I find myself, like Eliot in his preludes, stirred up by the 1,000 voices I've heard in your stories and poems, in this anthology of poetry and prose. And my soul feels stretched by your words into a shape that is somehow more resolutely, more deeply human. So I thank you for your courage and your contributions.